So noted.
So going forward with that, we were, after the last meeting, what my understanding was, and it was actually sent to me, that we would have a meeting with Gale Associates before the September meeting. We were invited to a meeting that we were going to have at your office with Gale Associates, and that was canceled, correct?
I'm not clear on that.
The school committee was going to be invited into Mayor Koch's office to meet with Gale Associates, and then it went away.
That's news to me.
Oh, okay. Well, that was not news to me. I was underneath the impression that we were supposed to meet.
I don't know who gave you that impression. I stated pretty straight out that we would have a full presentation before the school committee by Gale Associates. I said that several times during the presentation. The school committee doesn't meet in the mayor's office.
Oh, well, I was just saying that I was underneath the impression that we were going to see plans before the September meeting. However, there was a meeting, and it was with a private citizen, the head of the track department. He works in the city of Quincy, but he was shown the plans ahead of us. We're not getting privy to the information that other people getting privy to. So there's information that's out there, and I feel as though that's not completely fair. As if you're going to have private showings to the head of track and not being shown here, that seems a little bit misrepresentation too. We should at least know what's being shown before other people are being shown about that, and that's a problem I have. You have meetings with people and showing them the plans, and we're being told to wait, and then in the time period that we're being told to wait, money's being spent, and we can't get that money back. Now, I'm talking about as a private citizen tax dollars that I pay into the city, and what my problem with that is that from my understanding of how the money was specified, it was site-specific, and it was site-specific to Pageant Field, the monies that you're saying that you're now using for Faxon Field. It was site-specific, from what I understand through the counselors, for Pageant Field. And now we're taking that money and using it for Faxon Field. And it seems to me like that's unresolved too. And the counselors are saying back to me when I talk to them, well, you guys have to vote on that site. So it's kind of the cap, we got to make a decision as to what site we want to do before we go ahead and start using that money to go someplace else. And that's how it was. So that's a little unresolved issue too.
Can I respond to those?
I don't know. Can you? I mean, I don't know how that works. So if you can, that would be great.
I'd like to. Mr. Jeff Hennessy, who's the head of the Quincy Track Club, also the guru on track in Quincy, was invited to my office at the meeting with Gale to share information from his vantage point with Gale on what should be included from his programs. So that when Gale makes a full presentation, we have all the information available for the track programs, because Jeff wears both hats, as you know. As far as the money goes, the money that was approved for the Pageant Field site in the amount of $1 million was site-specific. That's not the funding that's being used. The funding that's being used is part of the original $10 million bond issue for the parks. It was under the stadium program, and that's the amount of money that was assigned with SMMA for $228,000, which that contract was canceled. And we now have a contract with Gale Engineering to do the layout and design work for us for far less than that, which will still fall within that $228,000 item.
Okay, with regards to that, now that we're back at the stadium, was Mr. Hennessy brought in at the stadium to find out whether or not the track would or would not fit at the stadium before we tore the stadium down?
Yes.
He was. He was brought in and asked his opinions about the track.
Not only him, but we brought in football people, we brought in the athletic director, all the appropriate people to talk about the project that was before us.
That's interesting, because he pretty much told me that he was never invited into that. So that's
I walked the site several times with Jeff Hennessy personally, so I disagree with that.
Who was the agency of record for the stadium? Who was the one who did the plans for the stadium?
The park department.
The park department. And how come we don't have a track in the stadium, out of curiosity?
It doesn't fit.
How come it didn't fit?
It's too small.
When did we determine that? Before or after we took the stadium down?
After we took the stadium down?
Before you took the track out of the field, when did you determine that wasn't going to fit? Was it before you tore the field up, or was it, did you determine it before and we knew that we had a problem, or was it after you tore the field up?
We didn't tear the field up until we had plans for the new stadium.
So we knew that it wasn't going to fit.
The new plans in the stadium did not call for a track, because once the engineering was done, many concepts were tried, including putting a lane behind the home stands to fit it in. It just would not fit inside that stadium unless we filled in 3,500 square feet of wetland approximately around the Blacks Creek area. And at the time, the city solicitor Monica Cunningham did not want to pursue that because the high school was before the state DEP.
So we went ahead with the stadium plan that the park department made a recommendation for, even though we knew the track wasn't going to fit, and we didn't have a site-specific as to. So we've been out with, we basically have been, in the track community has been out of a track site for the last 4 years, and it's affecting over 2,000 students to be able to run track. We've lost a whole generation of kids. 4 years of kids have graduated without a track in the city of Quincy, and we are still playing with fields and the associations, and depending on who gets to appoint the people at the park department, we can keep changing sites. So if in 2 more years we have a new mayor, we can change the site to a whole new place. Is the way this is going to work, pretty much.
That's your opinion?
That's the way it seems to be working. You know, we have one mayor picked one site, a new mayor doesn't like that site, we pick another site, and we can keep going around and around and around, and it doesn't seem like we're going to have a track. Well, maybe we should have figured out where we were going to put the track before we tore up the track, if we knew it wasn't going to fit.
And you'd still have a substandard fifth-of-a-mile track.
And you still have, pardon me?
And you'd still have a substandard 1/5 of a mile track.
How would we have that if we knew where we were going to put it before we tore it out?
My point is the stadium track was substandard. It didn't
I
meet
understand
any
what
of
your
the
point is.
guidelines.
My point is that you should pick a location before you take something out so that you know where it's going to go.
I've been the mayor 6 months. I picked one. That's what's before you.
4 years ago, it should have been picked, is what I'm saying, before the track was ever pulled out. This problem is in existence because we pulled a track out before we had a decision as to where it's going to go. And now you're picking a site that's also problematic, and we had a site that was picked and already money was invested into it. So a change of location is happening, and money, tax dollars have been spent in that location. Tax dollars that are very valuable have been spent and invested into another location that's now being pulled the plug on and put to another location. And more tax dollars are being spent. That's what my problem is there, is that we're going to keep spending money on locations that don't make sense. And furthermore, we do have issues that I am concerned with, and they are safety issues. So when Mr. Pulio is suggesting that you play baseball on a field, that's fine. But when you run track on a field, you have to have a straightaway. So if you don't have a straightaway and enough time to be able to stop, it can be a problem. So if you're running straight and you don't have, I don't know if this track's going to be fenced in. I haven't seen anything for plans. So I'm being asked to wait to see something. And that's fine too, but my point is that, I thought that we were supposed to go back to the counselors to be able to get the money, but in the city of Quincy, when we do our budgets in the city for the school committees, we have to vote on money to be transferred over to any place else, and it just seems as if we're very unaccountable. There's $10 million that was not used, and you can still use it, and we can just keep investing all over the place, and we won't have a track, and it still will cost us. That money is supposed to go to building a track, so we're going to just keep building sites after sites after sites. That's my concern.
All set, Mr. Mahoney? Chair recognizes Mr. McCarthy.
Just to validate Mrs. Mahoney's statements about a meeting that she's talking about, I tried to request a July 1st meeting with yourself to bring in the subcommittee to talk to Gail. I got turned down, said we were going to wait until August or September, and that's when we found out that there was another meeting, I believe, probably a week ahead of that, with Mr. Hennessy, where he was shown probably several designs down at Faxon Field. That's when I started to think, not that the design was going to dictate the location, but the obstacles that are down at that site are dictating the location. The parking, the safety, the traffic. It's not going to go away. So I was a little disappointed we didn't get our shot with Gail on July 1st, so we could get an understanding to see if, what they had for things that I think are incurable here, these items. But again, my motion here is to vote on the location. It's not to vote on the condition of the soil or the topography or the design. It's to vote on that location. And I live in that area, and I know that location is very busy, and I don't see it happening, especially when it happens during the week, when those parking lots are filled up and people come in, especially the middle school, and they bring in hundreds of kids to run. They bring in hundreds of families to watch, and those families have children that are all over Route 3A and Cottington Street. And that's my main reason, is the location itself. Not that they can fix the site, make the soil stable, but my motion was to vote on that location, that address itself.